Hey, today I would like to address how to draw characters consistently from different angles. There have been a lot of videos that already touch upon these subjects, but it never hurts to have another one up there. So I'm going to start out by drawing a few circles because that tends to be the base of most people's heads. And my main thing is when I draw a character, I tend to be quite stylized, but at the same time, there's still construction put in there. It's just that certain aspects will be pushed forward depending on what I'd like. For example, if I want a character to look intelligent, I may give them a massive forehead. And if I want someone to appear quite snooty, I might give them a very diamond-like face. Also makes them look a bit skeletal, which works. So right now I am just roughly sketching out one of my characters. The main thing is when you start drawing a character is have an idea of what sort of personality you have in mind for them. Whilst appearance doesn't always correlate with personality, when you are telling a story, sometimes you will have to think about how their personality might affect their appearance. For example, there's every chance that a lot of characters that are quite paranoid or very high energy might be quite streamlined in appearance. But of course, there's no real rule for these things. I tend to avoid drawing faces that look straight at the camera. I think it's just a bit of a habit for me. Now, this character has quite a big nose, high cheekbones, and massive, in general, cheekbones, and quite a tight-lipped face. Now, when it comes to characters, it's good to think about what they're going to look like from different angles. Already, there may be some things that look nice on a character from the front, but perhaps they look very strange from the side, and either you want that. For example, they could appear very aesthetically pleasing from the front, when you turn them from the side, they might just have a massive, well, they might just look very, very odd. And it's nice to play with things. Now, it's always good to keep in mind that there are quite interesting shapes you can keep in mind and look at on your own characters. For example, I always tend to look at this look for a triangle between the eyes and the nose, and from there I might sort of imagine lines coming across different parts of the form as if it was made out of as if it was 3D. It's always quite important to think about your characters in a 3D way, they can still be symbolic. They can still be very stylized and symbolic, but it's good to know what a symbol would look like if it's, say, from slightly above, below, to the side, especially if perhaps your character is going to be drawn from a lot of different angles. There is no point in having a character that you only know how to draw from the front, because how many times are you going to be able to have a character that you can only draw from the front? It'd be very strange, and people catch on fairly quickly that you've got some issues with drawing. So we've got my character here. I'm just sketching a bit as I'm going. The triangle on her head is quite wide, so you can say she's got quite wide apart eyes, and the mouth is not far away from the nose. Some mouths I really like drawing. These are one of them. So she also has quite a long face in general, and as she progresses, she does end up quite thin. So here we are, massive, massive forehead. Very anxious looking but heavy lidded eyes. So I'm gonna take this drawing and I'm gonna draw it from the side. So she has quite a wide triangle. And that from the front should be like this. Now I'm quite bad with front views, so it is something I'm going to tackle right now in this video, because not everyone's going to be perfect, and the more that I practice certain angles, the better I'll be, of course. Same goes with anything in life. Right, so I'm jotting down where her eyes are. I'm thinking about also, it's good to remember basic shapes that your character may have. I tend to think about a diamond with this character. So essentially it's a circle and a diamond, and that tends to give her the face shape that she has. You can also have characters that are basically squished circles or triangles or rectangles. Play around with it, especially if you're still developing a style. Common problems that tend to get in the way of people being able to draw characters consistently from different angles usually involve issues with their understanding of construction. So you may find yourself quite frustrated when you draw a character from a certain angle, and it may be because you have not practiced drawing someone in that angle enough and you don't understand the construction. Perhaps you've never done anatomy studies where you'd be able to understand after enough time how everything sits under the flesh. These are really important. If you want to get better at drawing, you have to put in the work and the time to get to know just what you're drawing. And if you ever have problems with your character, it may be good to actually draw a skull underneath their face, even if they're stylized, because you may realize one of your issues is because your symbols are getting in the way of your character being visually understandable. So what I'm talking about is perhaps you have a character like, yes, like this. And you're thinking, how come I can only draw it from 3/4 view? And that's because you have symbols which you have no idea how they work as a 3D thing. So these symbols only work at this angle. You can't plaster them exactly the same from a side view. It's just going to look terrible. That's why you end up with people who may have the same symbols going from the side like that. It's a common mistake, though. If you are going to draw in a certain style, you have to think about how your stylized symbol for eyes is going to look at from different angles. So this symbol I have for eyes, how would that look like from the side? Perhaps like this. They are a bit rough around the edges, but that's what happens. I'm sure you get the idea regardless. The thing is, everything's going to change unless you have a really simplistic style. Things are going to change from the angles, and you're going to have enough of an understanding of what you're drawing in a constructive sense to be able to manage that. So if you find yourself unable to draw heads at different angles, stylized or not, how are you going to be able to draw your character at different angles? That's far more difficult. You have to think of how to make your character look unique, what sort of style to have with your character to accentuate parts of their personality which you'd like. And it's just going to be awfully stressful and just put you off drawing even. So, is my character looking dead inside from the front? Not quite liking this, but it'll have to do. I like her to have quite a lizard sort of looking face because she's not human. I have to admit she also wears a lot of strange headgear. That's something. Your characters, you have to have an understanding of their construction without clothes, but you should keep in mind that the clothes that you put your character in can be quite fundamental to expressing who they are as a person. That's why Shale has a diamond-shaped face, and it's complemented by very angular triangle-shaped clothes, which give her quite a serious, steadfast sort of look, and maybe a little bit shifty, but you know, that's how it tends to be with characters. Of course, you can play with pairing traits that you don't expect to be next to each other. It's very important, but there is no harm having the occasional, what's it called? Cliche. You really shouldn't be afraid of cliches, especially if you're using them in the correct way, I'd say. Ooh, love that nose. So I'll do this character from the side. See, if you look at the triangle, it's still pretty much the same. There's still pretty much the same distance between the eyes, the chin, all that good stuff. And now I'm going to draw her from the side. Another thing with characters is once you have an understanding of construction, you can have quite a lot of fun playing with the style. And I would say that you don't have, there will come a point where you will forego lessons that you've learned in order to put across a certain emotion or feeling that a character may have. And they are very fun, and it can make the picture quite intense. So for example, say your character's surprised, you might have their eyes appear bigger and the whites of their eyes appear larger. And you know that it's physically impossible for their eyes to become larger, but if you do it in quite a clever way, then people will, it won't put people off the reading, it will actually make it more interesting. Whoop. Speaking of symbols, I'm having difficulty getting this from the side. Right, here we go. Oh, I love making her look constantly surprised. It's very, very important for me. Now, here we go. The triangle's still there. Her face might be a bit wrong in terms of where things are sat in the head, but that just means I have to do more studies. I'll give you another headdress because I just really like drawing headdresses. I think it's the main reason why I draw this character all the time. So, if you have a character, it's always good to play with the construction of them. So perhaps you want a character to look very serious, you might have their eyes very high up on their head, and maybe perhaps they always look down on someone, and they have quite wide mouths. It is not accurate, but for the purpose of storytelling, it's more effective than someone being stylistically more accurate than stylized. Let's give them some thick eyebrows too. I always feel like that's very, very serious. Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful. So, as long as you keep an eye on what sort of proportions you're giving your character, like this triangle, again, if you think about these sorts of shapes that seem to appear in the head, you'll be able to remember how to do it again and from different angles. Jesus. Well, that is just beautiful. I'll do another little quick sketch, perhaps of another character this time, and then pulling a few expressions. So this character's more like an oval. They're meant to be a little bit on the delicate side. So with some characters, you may find that you no longer draw a circle, and it also comes with perhaps a better understanding of structure, which means that you're able to see where things are going wrong before they really happen. So you have a better understanding in general of what looks right and how to make sure it doesn't look too wrong. Let's see. So I'm just going to draw this guy. This guy has a kind of a longer triangle. Yeah, that's better. This guy tends to look a bit pissed. He's got a smaller forehead. Sorry, that's a bit of a cheat, but a bit rusty. And he's got quite a weak chin. So, drawing from another angle, perhaps screaming. Oh, there's always something, if you pull a face, whenever you're drawing a face, it happens just without you even trying. It's terrible. I'm just sat here by myself, pulling awful faces which I'm attempting to draw. So I'm going to be a bit lazy with him because there's always something if you know how the skull works. When you open your mouth, it stretches out your face. Now I'm stylizing here, which of course is what you might tend to do when you want to show something for storytelling purposes. You can be accurate 100% of the time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have more interesting drawings. I can't tell whether I want this guy to be disgusted or just furious, so give me a second. Beautiful. Jesus. I'm gonna drop this drawing like it's hot. Just like never look at it again. So this character has a long face, makes him look weak. But you could also have someone with a thin face like this and then a massive body to go with it, and it's quite a nice, appealing contrast. So play around with it. And if you want a good character in general, it shouldn't just be their face you think about. It should also be their body language, their personality, and essentially, you know, what makes them them. You can't just have a pretty looking elf man and expect everyone to like him, because we don't have any reason to care. Same with, you can have a cool looking character, but if nothing in your drawing is saying what sort of person they are, why do we care? Oh, that's me. That's my little rant, and thanks for watching. Cheers.